I used to wear those when I was working and we did, the raids and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So in about 13 seconds, the stream will officially start, but it should be a good show. And man, I almost feel like going. Trying to think if I've got any bow ties anywhere still. I used to wear them. I don't think I can find one though. So, all right, streamers, welcome to the show. You guys know the drill. We're no longer live out of the Boss Hog Radio Network, but that's good news for you because it's fewer commercials. So we're going to do the formal introductions in about just under 6 minutes when we start the radio portion of the show. But you've got Dr. Joel Schultz, and it's going to be the Dr. Schultz and Chip show today. We got some great topics, and one that I just added this morning due to a recent Supreme Court decision that I can't wait to talk about as well. So it should be a good show. We got Sergeant George. He's been waiting since 4:25 p.m. yesterday for us to go live. He's in Hayward, California. We will try not to hold that against him. And it was 63 degrees back. Actually, that's not really bad for 4:25 in the afternoon and it being 63 degrees. How sweet is that? That's pretty nice. Yeah, I could do that, doctor.
It's going to be 75 today and a little bit of showers. So we had 99 degrees last week, so it's up and down.
All right, yeah, that's not bad at all. I'm popping over here to Rumble. We've got Andrew over there, Richmond, Virginia. 98 degrees, humid. Yeah. Feels like 116 degrees. That's what he says in Richmond. And then we got MVS in Colorado, where it's like California, it's 61 degrees. But actually that's now. So that's a. I mean, I may have to move to Colorado.
Maybe we can leave our cookies and chips unsealed. The humidity's negligible. It's really most of the year it's really mild, at least in our little microclimate. There are a lot of different climates within the state with the altitude changes.
Yeah, that sounds pretty sweet. That's why I love Carmel, California, and my wife and I want to start going there and staying a month at a time. Now October, we usually go in October, but we usually go for less than a week. But I'm told that at the other times of the year, it's not. October's the time to go. It gets foggy, kind of like San Francisco, and you just don't have the visibility. And I like to stay in Carmel by the sea, so you're right on the ocean, right on the border of Pebble Beach. You're right there where those cliffs are and everything. So it's nice. But so ideally October would probably be the time to go. My wife's wanting to go around January. I don't know what that weather's like in January. But it would be nice if I can pull that off. So I'll keep you posted.
That's the only time I get homesick for Missouri. Not the only time, but is in the fall in October. The leaves and the temperature is really nice. Kind of makes me nostalgic. But I do love Colorado, my adopted state.
Yeah, you guys got a lot of good things going on over there. So I know people that with my agency with Tampa that have moved up and retired and live up in Colorado. So
got a lot of retired cops out here. I don't know if that's going to continue with our current Democratic regime, but we're getting Californicated, as they say.
Yeah, I know, but you're right. I know a lot of Leos that I used to work with that now live in Colorado. So yeah, or the new California. Maybe I should say.
We're getting there. Maybe we can stall it off. I don't know.
Well, I'm holding the story right now. Our mayor, my former partner, just announced that. I'm trying to think of how to put this. Just announced in the media and in print that the cops here should not be doing the work of ICE. And I think it said they did not want us working with the federal government as far as, the illegal immigration stuff. So we hadn't really taken a stance. We had formerly been listed kind of like it's a sanctuary city, but not really about, and even on the list now, we're not listed. But after that statement, it might help get us up on that list now. So there's some people with some issues with that. So
yeah, it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. But this new Supreme Court decision, that's certainly that we're going to be talking about first. That's certainly a move, in my opinion, in the right direction. And we need the support. But you know what? They're going to get the job done, whether we help them out at the local level or not. It sounds like they're going to get the job done. They're going to help save us from ourselves. I hate to say that, but it seems like it's true, especially in these Democratic run jurisdictions. And Tampa is a Democratic jurisdiction, even though we've got a lot of not heavily not radical, not typically woke, but we definitely are. You're going to get a politician. We're going to have a mayor. He or she's going to be Democratic. You're not, very rarely we're going to get Republicans voted in the office here in Tampa. So that might change one day, hopefully, but yeah.
I'm okay with any moderate, anybody that's willing to make rational arguments and not just hate things because of somebody's personality that happens to be in the White House right now. It's that's got to change.
Yeah, when you can't have intelligent conversations anymore, people are just so incensed off of an emotional drive of hate that it's hard to even talk logically to people like that. It's really disappointing that people get so clouded, their judgment gets so clouded just off of an emotional, and they can't even explain it. They just hate. I don't know.
Yeah, very frustrating.
Yeah. So we are less than 20 seconds out. I'm trying to see if our LinkedIn is kicked in yet. I'm having trouble seeing our connection on LinkedIn. And we finally kicked in, Doctor. So you're live and big on LinkedIn right now. We are going to satellite radio. I'm going to start the music. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com. My name is Chip the Block, and I'm your host, and we're a group of law enforcement professionals that talk about today's news and issues, but we do it from a law enforcement perspective. And let me introduce, our panelists. We have Dr. Joel Schultz, all the way from Colorado, and, he's also a former police chief, and we have been covering his stuff for years at leoroundtable.com. He is formerly and maybe perhaps still writes for Police One, but has written some just unbelievable, fantastic articles. He's definitely has his fingers on the pulse of law enforcement, and he helps steer us in the right direction when we have a tendency to get confused or not know how to interpret things. So I love having Dr. Schultz on the show. Hey, shout out to our sponsors, guys. We have Gulls, our title sponsor at Gulls.com, CompliantTechnologies.com, our satellite sponsor. And yes, we're on satellite radio right now. AeroPrecisionUSA.com, our arms sponsor. We have Gunlearn.com, MyMedicare.live, SafeguardRecruiting.com, our streaming sponsor. And yes, thanks to them, we're streaming to over 1 million followers right now on social media. And twobells.com, they built a new online store at leoroundtable.com. So if you want cool gear like the shirt I'm wearing, coffee mugs like the one behind me, go there. We don't charge anything extra. In fact, when I order the stuff, I do it this with Ralph. Ralph wants a coffee cup. He's holding his little styrofoam cup up too. And but we don't charge anything extra for the gear. We're just trying to get our stuff out there. So we don't make a dime off of anything in the store. And so check it out. And you may find something that you like. Also, FishOrlandoBass.com. Zach has got a bass fishing charter in Orlando, and it's right next to Disney. So look, when you're dropping the wife and the kids or the grandkids off at Disney World, steer over and hook up with Zach at the Bass Fishing Charter, FishOrlandoBass.com. Or if you're feeling more adventurous, you can do the Florida alligator hunting, where you catch and relocate the wild Florida alligator. It's a great opportunity. A shout out to Brian Burns for the Tampa Free Press at TampaFB.com. Thanks for carrying their content. Brian, also Ray Dietrich or former lawman.com, and our own Travis Yates with lawofficer.com. Thanks to all these entities for helping make the show happen. Yes, we have a breaking news story. Donald Trump scores major win as the Supreme Court of the United States backs big part of his deportation agenda. It was a 6-3 vote. Wait till you hear the good news about that. Also, we've got FBI bust 700 rioters. Bongino warns we're not done. Yeah, that's another great story. Bullets fly in Florida. Deputy and a suspect are injured in a violent traffic stop. It wasn't the traffic stop that did it. It was the female in the back of the cruiser on her way to jail with a gun hidden on her. That's what created the issue. Then we got a more police officer tases and body slams, and it's a heck of a body slam, a suspect who broke into a home. Then we got Albuquerque police released footage of a SWAT officer fatally shooting an armed shoplifting suspect. And then we got a shooter. That's a new word. We got a shooter opens fire during a church service. He gets fatally shot by a good guy with a gun. But reading in the article, I could have sworn I read that that the good guy took out the bad guy with a car and not with a gun. So we'll see if we get it right here. Oklahoma City police released footage showing what led up to a deadly shooting of a rape suspect. And then finally, if we had time to get to it, double stabbing and arson suspect fatally shot by Prince George deputies. So let's go and start off, if it's okay with you, Dr. Schultz. RVMnews.com, which stands for Red Voice Media. Donald Trump scores a major win. A Supreme Court backs a big part of his deportation agenda. So SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, ruled 6-3 on Monday to grant the Trump administration's emergency request to stay a lower court injunction. Here we go with the injunction again, that it temporarily blocked third country deportations, delivering a short-term legal victory for the White House in its ongoing immigration enforcement efforts. So we still have these federal judges that have jurisdictions all over the United States, but they're weighing in and trying to run the federal government on, instead of the White House. The ruling allows the administration to move forward with their deportation or deporting certain immigrants and these guys are illegals. They came from countries other than, the United States, and we want to move them out, but not necessarily to the country of their origin. And so that's what this new Supreme Court ruling is going to allow us to do. It doesn't say anything about trying to return them to their country of origin first, and then if that is denied, then going somewhere else. I kind of expected that, Dr. Schultz, but it didn't say anything about that. But it did say that at the center of the legal dispute, there's a class action lawsuit originally brought before U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy in Boston. So this is part of the problem, this guy. The case involves a group of migrants who contested their deportations to third countries, nations not explicitly listed on their removal orders. Now, the countries named in court documents include South Sudan, El Salvador, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. Judge Murphy had previously ordered that these individuals remain in U.S. custody until they have been provided the opportunity to undergo what he calls a reasonable fear interview, allowing them to explain any fear of persecution or torture that they may face when deported to one of the designated third countries. And I suspect that every illegal would make this move if it will simply delay the process, right? And now we're going to need more judges, because we're talking about millions of people here that have been walking across the border over the last 4 years. But Murphy, our judge, clarified in earlier rulings that his injunction did not block the Trump administration from executing removal orders, but required it to comply with applicable legal procedures. Of course, putting us probably, I'm assuming, years behind in the deportation status. Now, the Trump administration appealed the order with the U.S. Solicitor General John Sauer. They argued before the Supreme Court that Judge Murphy's injunction was preventing the government from deporting some of the worst illegal aliens. And Sauer, our U.S. Solicitor General, specifically referenced a group that had been ordered to be removed to South Sudan, and they were instead being held at a military facility. The administration maintained that these individuals had been given the chance for reasonable fear interviews before further deportation proceedings. So Trump said, the administration said they did that. Anyhow, so the Supreme Court, the ruling marks another key development in the series of legal battles over immigration enforcement under President Donald Trump's second term. And that's kind of where we're at. I'm curious what you think, Dr. Schultz.
Well, first of all, for those watching on the video, you can tell that I dressed up for our first solo date. I'm pretty excited about that. And I keep hearing Lou Rawls singing, just the two of us in my head. So thanks for the opportunity. Wow, just so many things going on here. First of all, Boston's a pit in terms of, inviting dangerous illegals in. And so the judge's decision there is not super surprising. Then the Supreme Court has just spanked the federal district judges over and over and over. And maybe, unless there's some legislation that expedites it, maybe they're finally getting the message that, there's a separation of powers, there's a supremacy clause, there's the 10th Amendment, there's due process. And the Supreme Court really has had a good deal of clarity. You say this was a 6-3 decision. Didn't expect a unanimous one, but it was pretty definitive decision. And you're right about, if you're asking somebody, gee, do you not want us to deport you? They're going to say, no, I'm scared. They already lack credibility because they're here without proper legal authorization. Certainly a police officer with that kind of background, would be excluded from giving a credible testimony. So it's, it does go back to this issue of, and I've heard different counts, anywhere from 750 to over 1,000 federal district judges. I'm not sure how many there are, but to interfere with executive power against this president, who has arguably the most brilliant set of attorneys around, that anticipate every argument, every angle. They're digging through, old statutes and court cases. And it's not even a question of Trump asking forgiveness rather than permission. He knows what he can get away with. And I would add that this argument that these folks, these criminal aliens, are not getting due process. There is due process. It may not be the same due process that you and I would get in a criminal trial, but there is a process to vet and to deport and to get sign-offs from judicial officials. So it's not the big bugaboo. It's sure, it's kind of scary if you've got a relative that that might be under the shadow of being accused of being an illegal immigrant. But we're not at this point, especially once they've decided, let's not chase farm workers through the fields and raid Mexican restaurant kitchens and those kind of things. When I was at FLETC, I went to a cop shop off campus and bought a Border Patrol hat, and I learned not to wear that to restaurants because your level of service changes. So I think Trump is kind of on the right track. He's a man of excess. He's unapologetic. He's very transparent, and the Supreme Court, no matter how reluctant they may be to abide by his personality and some of his extreme actions, they're looking at the law, and he's right.
All right, I love it. Well, thank you for the take. Appreciate it, guys. If you're ready, let's go ahead and hop on to our next one. We have two main stories back to back. They do have a tendency to be a little bit deeper. This next one, RVMnews.com, FBI busts 700 riders. Bongino warns we're not done. So yeah, some more good news. The FBI has arrested more than 700 individuals in connection with a wave of anti-ICE riots that have swept across multiple Democratic-run cities, according to FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, who of course needs no introduction. He goes on to say that he detailed the FBI efforts in cities like Los Angeles and Seattle and Portland, are the trifecta there. These locations have been the site of frequent anti-ICE protests and riots over the recent months. We've watched them pretty much burn the city down, or the cities down, on the news over the last month. We warned about these violently acting out in recent riots, that we would not tolerate it and that we would not forget. This is Bongino talking. Over 700 arrests have been made in coordination with our federal and state partners. Many of those arrests are members of organized groups, and we are pouring through data in pursuit of more bad actors, according to Bongino. So they're not done. And this is getting even better. So I absolutely love it. There's going to be more to come. He goes on to say that, well, we're already at over 700, but he goes, there's more developments in Los Angeles that we're going to be talking about when we come to commercial break. But guys, it's all good news. If you want to hear more of it, stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, guys. As police officers, we all know that we can buy our gear from a lot of different sources. And when we consider going online, it's almost endless, right? But I want to remind you about the importance of supporting the companies that actually support law enforcement. I don't know of a company that does that better or fits that bill better than Gulls at Gulls.com. Even their motto is proud to serve those who serve, which of course they do in spectacular fashion. And they walk the talk by supporting dozens of focus organizations like this radio show. So when you're looking for gear, please support our title sponsor by going to Gulls at Gulls.com, and they're going to do you one better. For the loyal listeners of the show, they're going to give you a code. It's radio15, and that will get you 15% off your next purchase at Gulls.com until June the 30th. Again, radio15 at Gulls.com. And they have gift cards. We give away 2 every week on the show. Hook up your family, friends, and loved ones with a new Gulls gift card, and they will be your new best friend. So again, radio15 or get the gift card, Gulls.com. All right, we got 2 minutes before we come back to the radio portion of the show. And I think we're off to a good start, Chief Schultz. So.
Yeah, and I would like to, if we get to it, I'd really like to talk about the church shooting in Michigan. I got, I think, some insider information that might contradict what the press releases have been on that initially.
All right. No, I love it. Let me just see here. I have got that. We've got that as update number 2. So I will bump that up to make sure that we talk about that. I'll swap the updates. How's that? That should work.
That'd be good.
All right. Excellent. And I know that on Rumble, I had mentioned about reading that we had a good guy take out the bad guy with a car, but that we had church security shooting him. And so Andrew had said that he did get hit by a car, but then he walked it off, and the church security put him down. so apparently that's what I'm hearing is that's a better explanation than the way the article was written. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we can fill in the blanks on that. I don't know if you're familiar with Keith Graves. He used to be a fairly prominent narcotics instructor and worked in California. And he shifted to church security consulting. And he does broadcasts frequently and does debriefs on incidents. And he's got a lot of connections. So he managed to talk to somebody that was on scene and kind of clarified some things that I think are very interesting and significant.
All right. I've been in the space. For years, up until fairly recently, I was doing church security, working with a guy named Bobby Alsop here in the Tampa Bay area, and so yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. Plus, of course, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman is heavily involved in that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we got 10 seconds. Here we go, guys. I'm going to start the Chief's favorite music. Here we go. Welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. And just so people know, Leo stands for law enforcement officer. A lot of people just don't get it. But whenever you see like Leo on the shirt, or you hear someone say Leo, my ears always perk up because, I'm thinking, are they talking about a law enforcement officer? But people, the general public, don't understand the meaning of that, that acronym. So that's where we get the name for the show. And look, we've been talking about FBI bust 700 rioters. Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, warns that they are not done yet. So we left off talking about over 700 arrests have been made in coordination with federal and state partners, and many of those were organized groups. And he says that we're not done. We're in the process of identifying and moving in on those who threw rocks at law enforcement officers and damaged property. I told you we would not forget. I wasn't kidding. Stay tuned for more. I love it. Dan Bongino. Awesome news. And maybe these guys will get a little bit of a pucker factor. I get tired of watching cities like LA. And look, I know the administration's having the cops stand down, not letting the cops do what they really want to do. But, watching people burn stores and looting and running out with these big screen TVs and with jewelry just drives me crazy. Further developments in Los Angeles became earlier this week, according to our article, when Bill Esali, U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, announced federal charges against a guy that was accused of distributing heavy-duty face shields to rioters. So I see the chief nod his head, and he remembers this when it happened. So according to officials, the suspect was captured on video. He's dropping off boxes of protective gear. People thought it was like masks and stuff at first, but it was from the back of a black pickup truck during the June 9th riot in downtown L.A. And this guy's got a new home for a while. So Chief Schultz, thoughts on this one?
I'm as worried about science fiction Big Brother as every citizen should be. But when it comes to technology and solving these things, you realize you've got facial recognition, you've got stationary cameras, you've got license plate readers. You've got, I understand there was a drone in the air, the kind of drones that can see what time it is on your digital watch, from height. And so all these things have been put together. Not to mention the social media, the lawful social media surveillance that can be done from open sources. So if the FBI is really going to pull some resources into solving this criminal behavior, I think that's a great use of technology for public safety. These guys, and we've said this before on this show, more than just me. And I like going to riots. I went to Ferguson, I went to Portland, I went to Seattle. They're one that just happened to happen when I was in Seattle to do a ride along. One of the guys that I rode with, his partner was involved in a shooting the next night, and so we were going to get a picture taken in front of all Starbucks in Seattle, which I didn't realize. We quit at 17, and but we were going to our like 16th Starbucks, and all of a sudden this riot started. There are very few spontaneous riots in this day and age. And what the FBI is doing is protecting the First Amendment rights of lawful people gathering to protest, to demonstrate, to exercise their right to free speech. And the biggest threat to that is not the National Guard, it's not the FBI, it's not LAPD and riot gear. It's these criminal actors, these conspirators who get bussed in, shipped in, agitate, pay protesters, provide the supplies. It is a criminal enterprise to do some of these things that cause agitation. Now, no doubt some innocent people get caught up in the crowd psychology and do things that they may go home and regret, like like we see sometimes. But this idea that people have that these folks are just exercising their First Amendment rights. Yes, most of them are, but there are some criminal actors. I wouldn't just call them rioters or protesters, but criminal actors who are intentionally setting up opportunities to injure police officers, to reduce their credibility, to get the bad optics on video and send out wrong narratives, and to provide equipment to the rioters to do more damage. So I applaud Bongino and his efforts and his announcement, and it really ought to put fear in the people who think that they can get away with this stuff and interrupt the lawful exercise of our citizenry.
Hey, you bring up a good point, because when they're doing it the wrong way, it's kind of like the people that the illegals that come over and the people that are trying to come over, they're on a waiting list to come over legally. It just kind of screws up the system. And you're right, the protesters that are not going through the proper channels, they're not doing it peacefully and stuff. And of course, I do agree. We know now that they are being funded and financed, and it's organized. You're completely right. I'm a little worried about you, about everywhere you go, the riots follow you around, Chief. But there's a few flags there, but other than that, no, I think it's great. I just think there is part of me that still believes it's sad that it's taken the FBI and their resources to do this when I just don't feel it should be there. If there was a use of force or I'm sorry, a show of force from places like LA and Portland and Seattle, and they nipped it in the bud. And if you have to call in the National Guard or whatever, you can get the manpower and the troops to do that. Call neighboring agencies, like you do when you have a DNC, RNC, Super Bowl or whatever. But they stand down, and it enables these people. And now they're in a situation where the federal government on my tax dollars is having to go ahead and save the day. And I kind of resent the fact that we have to get it done that way.
In Portland, a federal judge says you cannot have cameras looking on the crowd. But of course, the cops can be filmed and everything else. So, this is a good turnaround. It's healthy. I think it's good for our democracy.
Well, I'm glad these guys are going to be held accountable. Guys, we're coming up for our second commercial break. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, guys, introducing Aero Defense by Aero Precision at aeroprecisionusa.com, a beacon of durability, dependability, and all-American craftsmanship in the realm of duty rifles. And yes, we're talking about long guns. They're born from an aerospace engineering company, so these guys know what they're doing. And Aero Defense by Aero Precision demands perfection, because selling for anything less is not an option when your life is on the line. Visit aeroprecisionusa.com for a lineup that matches every discipline, because they basically have something for everybody. And, you know, back since 1994, they've been quietly leading the AR builder parts domain, but now they're making waves in the complete rifle arena with Solus bolt actions. And that's not all. Their M4 E1 Pro and Mod 4 handguards, they hit the market last year at aeroprecisionusa.com. The embodiments of duty rifle excellence now being tailored for the civilian customer, which means that now you guys can start getting your hands on some of the primo stuff. And their M5 AR 308 platform, nothing short of spectacular. So don't settle for less. When you can have the best, head over to aeroprecisionusa.com. All right, we are 4 minutes out now from coming back to the radio portion of the show. And it looks like next week they're doing undercover operations. That's on June the 25th. And then in July, they got a bulletproof DUI class that they're going to be doing as well. So they got some good stuff going on at Blue the Gold. So how's the book writing there, Chief? And do you have any specials available still? Anything left or?
Oh, you know, if my author name is J. Franklin Schultz, and if anybody wants to go to Amazon and see what's out there, don't buy it off of Amazon. Email me at schultzco@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you for the same price that's on Amazon, and it'll be an autographed copy, and I'll cover shipping. So,
wow.
There's one about dealing with stress, anxiety, and PTSD. There's a daily inspirational reading book. And then the other one that I'm particularly proud of is called The Badge and the Brain. Yeah, I got a copy of it. And it blends psychology and brain science with tactics. And I think particularly for rookies and training officers, I really think it's a good book. I just reread it recently. And sometimes, you know, you look at something that you've written or an interview that you've done and you think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But I really enjoyed that book.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
Well, I wrote it. I think I wrote it. I don't know what the copyright date is. Probably 5 or 10 years ago. And I thought, man, I used to be a good writer. I don't know what happened.
You're not fooling me. Hey, do you ever go to SHOT Show or Police Week?
I've gone to the SHOT Show a couple of times. I've been to Police Week. Been to the Wounded Blue Survival Summit. And I think ISCP is in Denver. I don't necessarily want to go to any sessions, but I do want to go to the trade show. So I don't go to meetings a whole lot anymore because I don't have anybody that's bankrolling my trips. But I usually try to go on a press pass. So yeah, been to all those. Just fun stuff. Lots of toys and lots of other cops. DC Police Week the last time we went was really fun. And we found I sat down at a steak place that was also a cigar lounge and sat outside, fairly decent weather, happened to be a bunch of other cops there. We started telling war stories, just really, really great week.
Yeah, Police Week is special. If anybody watching the show, if you've never been, I firmly believe unequivocally that every police officer needs to go to Police Week at least once. It's such a special time. You need to experience a Canine Light Vigil.
Yeah.
You need to experience, on May 15th when they do the ceremony and the President of the United States is normally there and they read the names. Of course, the Canine Light Vigil is very moving too, but you've got the surviving family members that are there, at the ceremony. There's just so many special times. The Police Unity Tour rolling in on the bikes, the bagpipes. And look, I'm not a huge fan of bagpipes because I associate it with police funerals, right? Yeah. But when I hear them, it physically does something to my body now, but it's done so reverently there in DC at Police Week. It's just a special time. Judiciary Square, it's hard. I can't even describe it adequately. You just have to experience it.
Anybody from any place in the United States can go to that memorial wall and find somebody that's connected to your community or somebody that you know. So many names, so much pathos. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, and you will see cops from all over the world. I mean, everywhere, Australia, everywhere. We are less than 10 seconds out, so I'm going to start the music, but I might hook up with you in DC soon, Chief.
Oh, let's do it.
All right, guys, welcome back to Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. My name is Chip DeBluck, and I'm your host. We're joined by Dr. Joel Schultz, former police chief as well. And wow, we've been talking about the Trump victory, the U.S. Supreme Court allowing him to deport, the illegals to different countries now, and no matter what the lower court judge said. And now, of course, Dan Bongino, the deputy director for the FBI, has announced that they've arrested over 700 of these riders, and there's more names to come. The feds have stepped in to clean it up in places like L.A. and Seattle and Portland. So we've got an update story that we're going to be talking about next, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do a shuffle here for the chief and talk about the church shooter. So are you ready? Do you have your seatbelt on and you're ready to go, Chief Schultz?
Let's do it.
All right, excellent. RVMnews.com, Red Voice Media. Shooter opens fire during a church service, gets fatally shot by a good guy with a gun. And this is what we're talking about, guys. Even on yesterday's show, when we're talking about the bombing, which made the rest of my year, when we finally, took out Iran, at least these nuclear facilities, whether or not the enriched uranium was there or not, the capability to produce these bombs, we definitely set them back. But you need to be vigilant and on your guard, on your A game. And that's why we have things like HR 218 or LEOSA, Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, so we can carry, in all over the place. But a Sunday morning church service at Cross Point Church in Wayne, Michigan, violently interrupted when a 31-year-old white male suspect crashes his Ford F-150 into the building, and then he starts shooting at the congregation. One churchgoer was injured, and the suspect was fatally shot by a member of the church security team. Now, the incident started around 11:15 in the morning, approximately 30 minutes into the worship service, which included numerous children and families that were there for vacation Bible school. Wow, what a tough time, because whenever I used to teach vacation Bible school, and I stopped being able to do it when the show went live during the lunch hour. Up until then, I was doing it every year. That was always my worry, a threat when all these kids are there. This is what happened. Authorities have not released the name of the deceased suspect. That's the best news in all this thing. The guy's dead. But Deputy Chief Finley Carter III of the Michigan State Police Department confirmed that the guy drove his truck into the church building before he opened fire. And one male victim was shot in the leg but survived. Now, the FBI is assisting the ongoing investigation. And here we go. Dan Bongino, again, Deputy Director of the FBI, released a statement on X saying that the FBI is on site in Wayne, providing assistance and investigative support. Wow, the FBI it's the new FBI. Crosspoint senior pastor Bobby Kelly Jr. told the Detroit News that a church member had intervened by striking the attacker with a vehicle just before the church's security guard opened fire. Okay, so he said that he was run over by one of the church members who saw what was happening when he was coming into the church. Pastor Kelly estimated that approximately 150 people were inside the church at the time of the attack, including, of course, many children, because it's Vacation Bible School. Crosspoint Church has been dedicated, or they've had a dedicated security team for more than a decade. Good for them. And they made that decision based on rising violence targeting churches and other places of worship. So if you have a church, especially if you're on the pastoral staff or a pastor, and you don't have a system in place, man, I tell you, there's just no excuse. You have you guys are making a huge grave error that could affect people's lives, and you need to get on the ball. But Dr. Joel Schultz, I understand you may have some inside information on this, so I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's borrowed information based on Keith Graves' organization, Christian Warrior Training.com. He always does a debrief when we have an incident, whether it's an internal issue or crime on the church property or even pastoral misconduct. And so he was connected with somebody who was on scene. And here's the sequence. And first, I want to undergird this by reminding people, as you did at the introduction, that there are organized people and lone wolf people who want to do what terrorists do, whether they're connected to a group or not, which is to find a soft target, which this wasn't, and to find something that's going to have an emotional and symbolic attachment. And for people who are not familiar with evangelical churches and what Vacation Bible School is, it's a week of little kids that are doing Bible stuff and games, and it's just really a delightful time for kids, and people look forward to it. So just a really good target for somebody that wants to shake up a community. So here's the sequence that Keith came up with from his contact, that the suspect actually walked onto the property. And so I think from his perspective that the truck involved was a church member's, and we'll talk about that as kind of in the context that's already been mentioned. And he was kind of in military clothing, like dark clothing or camo clothing. And he had a long gun, and it's been reported as an AR style. And based on Keith's analysis, and again, he may not be right either, but he was talking to somebody on scene. It might have been more likely an AK type weapon. And based on the soundtrack from the video and from witnesses, it might likely have been modified for full auto or a bump stock, because there was some rapid firing. So a guy's coming in late to church, probably went by to get his Starbucks first before he came to church. So he's coming in late to church in his pickup truck, just a regular member, not part of the security team. And he sees this guy obviously headed toward, and I don't know at what point the shots were fired. The first shots were fired into the pastor's office as the guy approached the church. So this guy just uses his vehicle as a weapon, which I'm a big advocate of. I love when I see that, when cops do it and when civilians do that. And so he bumped this guy, laid him down on the ground. So they have a locked entry system that is guarded by a safety team member. And when all this commotion went on, a well-meaning lady from the church thought, oh my gosh, this poor man's got hit by a car. I'm going to go help him to see if he needs help, and unlocks the door, opens the door. And then the bad guy fires into the door, at this point hitting the safety officer in the leg. And then the safety officer returns fire. The bad guy either stays down or goes down, and then he starts to reload. And that's when they unload a couple of safety team members to completely put him down. So, a couple of observations about that, as you pointed out, the need for a safety team in this day and age. It's not unchristian, it's not unbiblical to protect yourself and protect the innocent, and to use force wisely against evil. And the only critique or observation I have about this, because they all did a good job, they deserve, gold certificates. And I mean, they'll get sued, but, bless their hearts anyway, is that there's a tendency when something happens, and I particularly talk about this when it deals with school safety. I consider that one of my areas of expertise, is there's this impulse to evacuate. And many, many, many times protecting in place with a barrier and accountability is a better strategy than evacuation. And I hate to see this in school shootings. The first thing everybody wants to do is to get out. When people are, there's been zero K through 12 students who have been killed by a school shooter who were behind a locked door when the bad guy was on the other side of the locked door. Now, we've had kids killed in classrooms, clearly, but never any that have been behind a locked door. Now, I say K through 12 because the Virginia Tech killer did kill a professor who was behind a door in a classroom. So I limit that to K-12. But protecting in place, even at the time when things have stabilized, you've got a crime scene to work, you've got accountability, you've got parents that are coming. Why are we having these kids run through open fields, go gather in some other place that may not be as safe, exposing them to fire? So just, again, as a lesson learned, think about protecting in place if the bullets are going to be flying, so you don't get in the path of it. But good job for the church community.
Yeah, I totally agree. I one for the good guys. Since we're talking about security, I know that some churches like to do their own thing. Let me just throw out there that if you hire, when we did it, if you hire a professional, someone, let's just say maybe prior law enforcement or military that has a lot of experience, and they've got state licenses and they've got insurance where they have multi-million-dollar, coverage that backs them up for what they do. So that helps takes the liability umbrella off the church's shoulders and puts it on them. Whenever you start doing things in-house, you start taking your parishioners to the gun range or telling them, teaching them how to shoot and stuff, puts a lot of liability on a church from my experience, and I don't like it. I always recommend going outside if you can, and there may be a cost associated with it, and especially hiring off-duty. There is a huge benefit to having a uniform, presence. There is in some occasions, a plainclothes, presence as well. For most churches, though, that uniform deterrence is what you're going to be looking at. But I just had to throw that out there. We're 10 seconds away. We're going to a commercial break. Stick with us, guys. We'll be right back. All right, guys, as law enforcement officers, we deal with guns every day, but it's what we don't know about them that gets us into trouble. Injuries, civil lawsuits, accidental discharges, misidentifications, lost prosecutions, and even disciplinary issues. But gunlearn.com, they have your back. You can quickly become extremely firearm knowledgeable by simply learning 14 training modules from the convenience of your home or your office, or by attending a live seminar at gunlearn.com. You can also become a safe, accurate, and competent certified firearm specialist like our very own Captain Brett Bartlett and also attorney Ken Afianco. Now, the course has had huge success in raising the bar of firearm knowledge, and GunLearn has been a trusted source since 2011 by gun manufacturers, federal agencies, forensic organizations, and police departments nationwide. Now, if you're having your own agency, you're a chief or a sheriff, the founder, Dan O'Kelly's got a great deal for you. You can actually host a seminar for absolutely no cost. Go to gunlearn.com to get more information. Again, the website, gunlearn.com. All right, guys, we've got 2 minutes before we come back to the radio portion of the show. And, things are moving along pretty quickly, Chief.
They are. Would you mind if we take up Albuquerque next time?
Next, I do not. Let me just. Do you know which one that is? It's a video?
Oh, that was the guy that was barricaded in a shed after pursuit. He was a shoplifting suspect.
Looks like video number 2, I believe. Okay, yeah, that's where SWAT took him out. All right, that's the armed shoplifter. Yeah, of course. Why not? I'll tell you what, Chief. Sure enough, why not? Anything for you. All right, so we're gonna jump to Albuquerque in a minute, guys. We've got about 1 minute and 15 seconds before we come back to the radio portion of the show. And I think we're getting this satellite radio thing down, Chief. It's going pretty good. So.
Well, that's good. We're getting some more radio stations on board with that.
We are. I need to get the call signs. It's really hard to get a hold of some of the new radio stations. The programmers and the station owners, they just got a lot going on. So I have reached out trying to firm up the call letters of some new stations, and I haven't quite got that yet. So anyhow, as soon as I get that, I'll start throwing out some call signs on the air and let people know where they're at and how they can tune in. So, but some of these are AM, some of them are FM, and people normally associate the FM channel. It has stereo capability, so you don't normally you have talk shows that are FM, but normally you think about music and stuff. But yeah, more and more stations are going FM now with talk radio. So yeah, we're all over the place now.
Oh, you've got some great shows, even some that I'm not on. Been really good.
I appreciate it. All right, less than 10 seconds. Here we go, guys. Back to satellite. All right, guys, welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. I'm Chip DeBlock, your host, and we're joined by Dr. Joel Schultz, former police chief as well. And look, we just got done talking about a church shooting, and now we're going to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Rumble.com, our favorite law enforcement video channel, has got this story. Albuquerque police released footage of a SWAT officer fatally shooting an armed shoplifting suspect. Not a lot of armed shoplifters out there, and it can kind of change it from a petty theft shoplift, to if he's going to be armed, it can turn that into an armed robbery, just in a matter of a second or two. But let me just say that this story does have a video component. So if you're listening to our show audibly, maybe your favorite podcast or radio station, please stay loyal to the outlets that are bringing you this good quality content. In return for that, we will describe in great detail what's going on so that you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. But if we have a story with a video component that you absolutely have to see, all you have to do is go to our Rumble channel, because the very next day at 9 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, our producer, Will Statzer, he'll create a special version of the live show. He'll embed every video that we talk about and put pictures of the good guys and the bad guys that pop up as you're watching the show. And again, that is at 9 o'clock the very next morning, Eastern time. That we do that Tuesday through Saturday. So Albuquerque police released footage of a SWAT officer fatally shooting an armed shoplifting suspect. Not a lot of SWAT call-outs on a shoplifting call, but this is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So Albuquerque police say the incident started when an officer was responding to an unrelated call at a Family Dollar. And as the cops arrive, what do they see? They see a 44-year-old suspect, Derek Pickett, and he's running from the store. He has stolen items in his possession, and he's got employees chasing him. And they alert the cops that Pickett had stolen items. So it was just like the perfect storm, right? Right place, right time. As the officers reacting to the shoplifting, our bad guy Pickett brandishes a firearm in his waistband, and he said he could not go back to jail. And so the story gets better. Pickett continues to flee on foot, and now he barricades himself in a shed. Now, as officers are attempting to negotiate with our bad guy, he fires a shot from inside the shed. An officer returns fire. No one ends up being injured in that exchange. And now we've got about a 2-hour time period before SWAT gets there. Now we got the SWAT team, and they take over. So SWAT continues to negotiate for about another 2 hours. So wow, I didn't really realize that earlier, but we got a 4-hour window from the time the guy enters this stupid shed. 4 hours. And I can imagine it being, hot, and, now he's, probably dehydrated and stuff. So 4-hour window, SWAT's out there, and SWAT's got these, they got gas masks on too. So I don't know if it doesn't say that they deployed gas, but even our shooter, you can hear the breathing in the mask while he's doing it. So I don't know why they were all geared up. So there may have been a deployment of some kind of gas or something, but they continue to negotiate for another 2 hours, bringing it to 4 hours, utilizing a throw phone, and that's commonly used to communicate with barricaded suspects. The police said that our bad guy Pickett emerges from the shed, and there's a video of this, so there's no doubt. He grabs the phone, and then he further exits the shed with a firearm in his hand, and he raises it. Now, when he raises it, it looks to me like it's a pistol, not a revolver. And he's holding it with his right hand. He puts it up to the right side of his head. Now, as he raises the firearm, we have an officer next to like a SWAT van, and he's got, a rifle, and he fires a single shot at Pickett. It looks like it blows right through his chest, right? And but it says that there's also a less lethal round, and a third cop fired a flashbang, and flashbang you normally just toss. I'm not sure how they mean by that, but Pickett ends up being hit and killed. There's a lot of screaming involved though before he ends up dying. So officers, but the weird thing is just that the officer with a rifle and the body cam, he gives command and say, hey, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, I'm going to shoot you again. I remember him fired another single round, from the rifle. So I don't know if the guy died after that second shot or not. It doesn't really clarify. Officers recover a handgun, a magazine, and for people watching the show, not a reading magazine, but the magazine or the clip that goes in the gun, and ammo. And he finds drug and paraphernalia in the backpack that the bad guy had. And police said the gun was not stolen, that it was legally purchased by our bad guy Pickett. So that's the way this thing ends. Dr. Joel Schultz.
This was one of the most graphic and brutal videos of an incident that I've seen. And first of all, let me tell you, I love Albuquerque PD. I don't love Albuquerque. But man, I tell you what, if you want to see some action, it's not like Tampa where you might go a week without hot call and your bullets get rusty. Albuquerque's a hot town. And I think they pulled out, it almost looked like a trade show. They pulled out so much stuff. They've obviously got a drone in the air. They had the less lethal. They had, they had the armored vehicle, which, by the way, I hope we're done being afraid of cops having armored vehicles. They're rescue vehicles. They're bullet resistant. They get people in, they get officers in where they otherwise couldn't go. So they're a good investment. And And sure, a lot of them are MRAPs, Army surplus. Nobody wants an MRAP, but not everybody can spend $250,000 to $500,000 for a customized armored vehicle anyway. But I think to answer the question about the gas mask, and I was worried about this too, you'll notice they had one of the smaller tracked breaching vehicles, and it looked like the tracked vehicles, the barrel was right up against that shed wall. So I think what they did is they poked a hole in the wall and injected gas.
Gotcha.
Which is, one of the functions of one of those little tracked things, and explains the gas thing. Some critics might say, well, it was just shoplifting. Why do you need to kill a guy for that? And obviously, as you said, that turned into an armed robbery, basically. And I get the image of these employees from the store running after this guy. It reminds me of, you remember the In-N-Out SWAT team on that guy that was ramming cop cars in the In-N-Out, and they surrounded him.
Oh, the In-N-Out burger, yeah.
But the initial response was like 4 In-N-Out peoples in their uniforms. I thought, wow, that they could use some of this gear. But he's obviously a dangerous guy. He's obviously a desperate guy. Which they knew over a period of conversation with him. And another critic might say, well, he had the gun to his head. You don't kill a guy that's trying to kill himself. And it wasn't pointed at the officer. Let me tell you, how many milliseconds does it take to turn the barrel from being pointed at your own head to somebody else's head? So a suicidal suspect can always become a homicidal suspect. So I don't have any sympathy for the guy threatening to kill himself, thinking that everybody would back off. Bless his heart, he was in a bad position. But it was a good shoot. It was brutal, because the average citizen will look at that and say, well, the guy's coming out, he's got the gun to his own head. What threat is he? He is an imminent threat, and deadly force needed to be used. And whether that was a less lethal round or an initial shot, he's like so many suspects we see on these videos. He kept going. It did not comply. You get shot, and man, again, I've never seen a blood gush like that, out of the back from a front shot, other than in the movie. So he was obviously devastated, but it took another shot to stop the threat. So good work, Albuquerque PD, good work, SWAT team, and good work for all that technology and machinery that they had available for that call.
Yeah, I agree, Doctor. Good analogy. I know that, assuming that, don't automatically assume when you watch these things that, and I'm not talking to you, Chief, I'm really talking to the viewers and the listeners. Don't always assume that the video and the audio is synced, exact precisely, because sometimes it's not. And another thing is that when you're a shooter and you make that determination to pull the trigger, and this is not going to be a rapid fire, this is going to be a nice controlled shot, because you want it to go where it's to the cop. Very possibly, let's assume that the audio and video was synced properly. Even then, the cop could have already made the determination when that gun moved and it was going up to the guy's head. At that point, when he saw the gun move, he could have made the determination that I'm pulling the trigger. And by the time he pulled the trigger, the guy had it up to his head. And that's always possible as well, because you have that natural delay.
Yeah, unless you've got a quick draw kind of shooting situation, if you've got, something's coming, I think every cop has a line in their mind. If this happens, the trigger gets pulled. Yeah,
no, you're right. So, so good analogy, and you're absolutely right. We've done scenario-based training where we've had bad guys simulate guns to their head and then pointed at us, and we've got a gun pointed at the bad guy, and he's got a gun to his head, and every time he takes us out before we even get a round off. It is literally impossible to defend from. If he's got that gun out to his head, and even if you have your gun pointed at him, there's no way you can protect yourself before he gets 1 or 2 rounds off.
And that was a decision that the bad guy made.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that's his bad. A great show, Dr. Joel Schultz. Thank you so much. And how can people get your books again, real quick? We got about 15 seconds.
SchultzCo@gmail.com. If you just want to know what it's about, or you want to see a sample or get a bundle of them, just send an inquiry. Be glad to chat with you.
Love it. Love it. And the Wounded Blue at thewoundedblue.org. Want to mention them as well. Also, Galls.com, CompliantTechnologies.com, AeroPrecisionUSA.com. And Galls is having all kinds of sales right now, guys. Gunlearn.com, on Medicare.life, SafeGuardRecruiting.com, 2bells, and FisherLandOBass.com. And we're going to keep this thing going just until we get to the top of the hour, about another minute and a half. And I did not, I'm going to go back and check and see whether we had enough people enter the Galls gift card giveaway. So again, guys, type in the word Galls, Galls, if you haven't won in the last 60 days, and give us your email address. It's a digital card, so make sure you do that if you want to be considered for winning that free $50 Galls gift card. And I'm looking here, I'm scanning Rumble and also on LinkedIn as well. And we may have to make this a 24-hour giveaway if I don't get enough entries in the next minute and a half before we wrap up the show. But another great show. Any final words to our listeners and to our viewing audience, Chief Schultz?
No, I keep your, and I love that civilians watch the show, and just keep your head on the swivel. The war may be over there, but it could be over here. So just be alert. Keep your eyes open.
Yeah. I totally agree. When something goes down in public, and my wife has less tolerance to go out in public now with all the threats and stuff, but I want to be the guy there to neutralize that bad guy. And I think that most cops feel that way. So be ready, be on your